Hey, what's up everybody? It's Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome to a replica track gameplay in Monster Energy Supercross, the official video game number 1, where today I'm playing a replicated version of the 2019 Anaheim 1 Supercross. Coming up tomorrow night, A1, can't believe it, it's already here, Supercross season is upon us, and tried to replicate this track to the best of my abilities in-game on the PC. A couple things that I couldn't quite get right, unfortunately, was there's not really a good start line to factor in the crazy first turn complex that they're going to have this weekend, which is, so when I come back out of this corner, there's normally supposed to be like 3 rollers right here, and then these doubles are going to double over the first turn area and double over where the corner comes into the first turn area right there. It'll make sense when you see it on the broadcast, but basically it was just really hard to find something that worked. So instead I decided to make the track as close to what it's going to actually be like and not worry too much about what the start's supposed to look like. So I mean, replica wise it's pretty close to the layout. There's a couple things off obviously, but hopefully it's close enough. Anyway, it is time to get back into the fun action of Supercross. And if you're new to these replica gameplay videos in Monster Energy Supercross, what I do here is kind of highlight what's going to happen this weekend at the Anaheim Supercross, at least my thoughts and opinions about it. With the season upon us, this is kind of more of like a preview to the series, more so than it is a preview of Anaheim 1. But to the best of my abilities, in 20 to 25 minutes, I'm going to talk about the series coming up, my thoughts and opinions about it, and see where you guys fall, whether you agree with me or not. Hopefully my opinions make sense, and maybe you will offer yours in the comment section below. So let's jump into some discussion, shall we? What I think the best thing for this video would be is if I kind of... there's 4 guys, in my opinion, that are the guys in Monster Energy Supercross right now. Jason Anderson, who I'm playing as, defending Supercross champion. Eli Tomac, Ken Roczen, Marvin Musquin. I'm not gonna say which order they might finish in, but those are the 4 guys that I feel are just a step above the rest, and I feel like that's pretty widely understood. Like, most people get that that's kind of where it is. You can put Justin Barcia, Justin Brayton, Cooper Webb, Dean Wilson, Cole Seeley, just a myriad of other guys into that group behind them. But as of right now, the 4 that I mentioned stand at the front. And what I think is going to be best for this video is to highlight 2 things in this video. Number 1, why the aforementioned 4 riders individually could win the Monster Energy Supercross Championship this year, and why the aforementioned riders could lose the Monster Energy Supercross Championship this year. So I'm going to start off with Jason Anderson because I'm playing as him, and he is your defending Supercross champion. Anderson, obviously, coming in as the champ, wants to repeat. Nobody wants to be a one-and-done guy. Everybody's kind of comparing Anderson's potential of being a one-and-done guy to Jeff Emig winning in 1997. How he was one-and-done. He never won a Supercross title again. Obviously, he was a great outdoor rider, but I don't know if I necessarily am going to classify Anderson in that same boat as Emig, but I'm a little skeptical about his ability to perhaps follow this up with a clean season and another Supercross title. So I'm going to say the reasons why I don't think he can win this Monster Energy Supercross title this year. The biggest one that sticks out to me is I don't personally think that he is the fastest of the 4, and I think that most of the time you would put him 3rd or 4th on that list of guys that I mentioned. Where he falls behind those guys, I don't know. Obviously you want to put Tomac ahead of him on sheer speed, but over a season Anderson was great last year, so racecraft wise I would say Anderson's better than Tomac. However, on a speed, outright alone, getting it done in a 20-minute main event because he's the fastest guy on the track, I don't necessarily classify Anderson as quite that guy yet. Can he be? Totally. At the beginning of last year, he stepped up. He looked like he was going to be that guy. And as the season went on and he had a huge points lead, he definitely kind of, tailed it down a little bit to hold on to his points lead. which means that maybe he just can carry that on through the rest of the season and there's really nothing to worry about. But I really don't feel like I saw anything massively, overwhelmingly awesome about Anderson from about the midpoint on last year. He only got 4 wins of the 17 to win the championship, and that's not that bad because Dungey only got 3 the year before and still won the title. But if there's a thing that you can point at is that Anderson really isn't like your perennial race winner. He has less wins than Roczen and Tomac, and I believe he's tied or maybe 1 win ahead of Musquin. They're very close on career wins. But Anderson isn't your favorite based on race winning speed to get it done. Now, that said, I think that Anderson can still win this Monster Energy Supercross title because he might very well have the one thing that all these guys don't have, and that's a level head for some reason. I don't know how that's the case, but last year, Jason Anderson had a good, solid, consistent season. And if it wasn't for a bike malfunction at Salt Lake City, he wraps up the title a race early because he was literally just steady all throughout the season. Nothing really got inside of his head, which is, again, weird for me because in the past, Anderson kind of was that guy where little things would get into his head and he would race aggressively and put himself in some bad situations. Obviously, the Vince Freeze thing comes up from Anaheim too a couple years ago. But Anderson looked more mature last year. He looked more steady, a much more kind of Ryan Dungey-esque approach to winning a championship, and lo and behold, it earned him that championship. Now, obviously, he's still got Alden Baker as a pseudo trainer, although Anderson's been living out on the West Coast and training on the West Coast for the most part. But Baker really gets the job done with his athletes most of the time, and Anderson obviously is proof in the pudding of that he used Baker's program to get himself into a level that was capable of winning Supercross races and becoming a title contender and obviously winning a championship. So taking that experience that he gained from winning a championship and knowing what it's like to be in the points lead for as long as he was and take it down to the wire like that, that's a huge advantage that really nobody else has except maybe Tomac because he's been in a title hunt for the 450 class before. But he wasn't the leader. For the most of the year, he was the chaser, and he had kind of almost less pressure on his shoulders to carry it all the way home because he just had to go out there and just click off win after win after win, which he's totally capable of doing. Anderson, on the other hand, seemed to relax, understand his situation, move through the season very methodically, and it won him a title. I really think that that's going to be the difference maker this year because if these guys still haven't really figured out that level of, knowing when to take a second, knowing when to take a third, and not pushing beyond their limits or letting the small things get to them, like Ken Roczen, who I'll talk about next, you're really shooting yourself in the foot in the long run because you're just going to, make these small mistakes that cost huge amounts of points, and Anderson just did not have that last year. So I think Anderson can win. I also think he can lose, but I feel the same way about all 4 of the guys I'm talking about. Moving on to Mr. Ken Roczen, as mentioned, Roczen has one glaring problem about him in the 450 class, and that's injuries. I mean, it's just the thing that is commonplace with Roczen at this point. Obviously, the near career-ending injury in 2017 stands out as like oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. But Roczen's never really made it through like a full season without having either a nagging injury that's small of some kind or having some huge crash. When he was on RCH Suzuki, he had 2 seasons in a row where he was pretty much the best guy. Like he was probably the fastest most of the season, but he crashed a lot. Ended up getting hurt both seasons with some little small injury or another, and it just let Dungey chip away and get as many points as he could get to collect and pull out a nice big lead. I mean, the thing that Roczen has to do here in this season is eliminate DNFs, which it looked like he was on track for last year. He was doing a great job of, when he didn't feel it, not riding over his head. And then obviously the situation with Cooper Webb happened, and it all just came unglued. His arm gets stuck in the swing arm, breaks his other arm that was his good arm technically, and yeah, the writing's on the wall from there. Missed the rest of the Supercross season, he's just got to eliminate things like that. At least, I think that's like an easy way to put it, but it's just kind of true. Like, he's got to ride smarter, like I'm talking about with Anderson, being able to carry a season term to term. You have to let the little things go in some cases, and you also have to just be smarter in general about your choices if you're going to be a champion. And I think Roczen definitely has that capability. Obviously, he is a 450 outdoor champion, 2-time 450 outdoor champion for that matter. So he knows what it takes to get it done. I don't think that that's necessarily a problem for Kenny, but for some reason in Supercross, every year, at some point during the season, he has the one big get-off. Maybe it doesn't necessarily end his season right there, but it's a huge hiccup. He either gets a small injury from it, or it kills his confidence in general. Like when he smashed his face in at Oakland in 2015, he was never the same rider after that, it seemed. Like he just couldn't get it back to where he was when he started the season, and he had that same mojo. So I think Roczen can do it, and I think that there's a lot of reasons that positively point towards him. Now, Kenny, before he got hurt in 2017, was, in my opinion, the fastest rider on the planet. Supercross, motocross, didn't matter what track you put him on, he was the guy. He was slaying the field beforehand. He had dominated the outdoors. And somewhere in there, that Ken Roczen still exists. Yeah, he's never going to physically be the same again with his arm injury, but the abilities that he has on a motorcycle, he can still do that. Like, somewhere in there, Roczen has the confidence and the talent to ride the way he was riding before he got hurt. I think that he may never ride like that again just because he's a smarter rider now, and he knows that riding to that level that he was on is only going to, create a potential crash situation that puts him out. But he really might be the most naturally talented rider on the track. And if he puts it all together, he really has almost everything going for him. Like he's on a great bike. He has a great, training program behind him. He has all the same tools that he really did use to win those titles beforehand. And just now it's down to putting it out on the track and making it work. He's got a full, kind of season behind him. He raced all of outdoors. He never really got hurt. Now the whole off season, he's been healthy and, feeling good. And really the most positive thing going for Roczen is that he's pretty much the only guy so far, rumored at least, to have not had some sort of weird off-season issue. Eli Tomac has been rumored to have been off the bike for a couple weeks this off-season with a back injury. Marvin Musquin, of course, has been off the bike for almost a month because of an issue with his meniscus that kept him out of the Paris Supercross. And then there's been rumors of Jason Anderson hitting the deck a time or two at the test track. So Roczen, for the most part at least, has had a clean off season, and he's coming into Anaheim 1 with a lot of momentum and all the reasons that existed before that he can still be a champion somewhere in there. Of course, he's gonna have to endure. He's gonna have to make it the whole season. He's never really done that successfully in the 450 class before, but it does only take that one magical year for it to work, and I feel like Kenny's capable of it. I really do. So I think he, again, has the chance to win this series. There's positives, there's negatives with him, just like there's positives and negatives with the third rider I'm going to talk about, Mr. Marvin Musquin. Now, Marvin has the distinguished title of scoring the most points out of anybody last year in the 450 class. He was your quote-unquote Grand National Champion winner by scoring the most points indoors and outdoors. Although he finished second in both series, he still actually collected the most points. And I think Marvin is kind of like, he's almost a little bit like your new Dungey. Yes, you can say kind of the same thing about Anderson and his level-headedness, but Marvin very clearly is not the fastest of this bunch. However, when he is fast, he takes those race victories, and when he isn't fast, he kind of knows it and settles in and tries not to, push it beyond his limits. When he had the points lead last year, I feel like he was maybe a little, too beyond that point. Like he thought that everything's going smooth, I got it all handled, I'm just gonna ride just how I know how to ride, and then it came up and bit him. So like it's a good thing and a bad thing that he is a level-headed character, because he's never really gonna be the guy that turns the brain off and throws caution to the wind. But, you know, that's won Dungey championships. It kind of won Anderson a championship. It really has the potential to win Marvin a championship. He's consistent. He's smooth. Yes, he's had an off-season injury, so that's really going to hinder him coming into the season. But if he makes it the first couple rounds with some half-decent finishes and he's getting in the groove of things, remember how good Marvin was at the end of last year? I mean, he won, I think, 4 or 5 races, so just as much as Anderson had won, and he was, you know, always right there at the front of the field, contending, finishing on the podium, occasionally taking it to Tomac when he could. And, I mean, realistically speaking, I just don't feel like that he's going to have a year that's much different than what he had last. Maybe it's a little worse, but that's only because of the injury that he's coming into the season with. And if he makes it the first couple rounds, like I said, I don't know if the injury is really going to be that much of a problem. It really wasn't a problem when he had his meniscus problem come up outdoors. He pushed through it, and before you knew it, he was winning races again in no time, and it was like no big deal. So there's a lot of questions raised about Marvin's ability in the whoops, Marvin's, you know, injuries that he's had coming into this season. And in general, he's kind of getting up there in age. He is the oldest of the group. I think he's 28 now, I believe. So, you know, I guess you could consider his window of opportunity starting to slowly close, but he also he's not hurt very often, really. Like, he's had a pretty, you know, steady career of not too many injuries. He's had the knee injuries come up from time to time, torn ACL, obviously the meniscus tear and all that stuff that he's dealing with, but he's never really had like a, you know, bunch of fractured bones, concussions, things like that. He's for the most part stayed healthy, so he really has the potential to, you know, take this career a lot further than where he is already. And yeah, I don't know, like, I feel like he's flown so far under the radar this year because everybody's said, you know, he's had the injuries, he's getting older, etc. But Marvin's Marvin, man. Like, he's kind of just going to be there. Now, that being said, all the questions that are being raised are 100% accurate. Like, he's going to have to, you know, switch it around and learn how to actually blitz whoops competently when all these guys are. Like, when the whoops are big, Marvin's got to blitz him. Like, he's got to. Yes, when he jumps through them, sometimes it works, but it doesn't always work. And it seems like every year we get to Glendale and Marvin's not very good, and it's usually because the whoops are big and the track is dry. Like, that can't happen in a season. You can't have a weakness that glaring and still win a championship. He's got to get the whoops figured out. He's got to stay healthy, obviously, which so far hasn't been the best because of his off-season troubles. But I just don't see Marvin being any worse than a fourth-place guy, and at best still being a race winner this year. So I think that, you know, he's definitely going to be a contender, definitely going to be a player, and by the end of the season, could see Marvin on top. He's maybe the least likely out of the group, but he's still in this with a shot. I mean, you don't finish second in both series last year, indoors and out, and come into this season considerably less favorable than you did last. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily that accurate about him. So we'll see what happens with Marvin. And now the elephant in the room, if you will, Mr. Eli Tomac. I mean, what did he got to do? Like, Eli Tomac has had about every opportunity you can think of to make this series his B word, for lack of a better word. He was slaying the field in 2017, but it took him a little too long to get going. He had a couple mechanicals, and it ultimately cost him the title. 2018, gets the whole shot, he's leading A1, looks comfy, wham, hits the ground. You know, it's always just like weird, nuanced, small things with Tomac that keep him from winning a championship when he really should. He really, in all honesty, I think Eli Tomac should already be a 2-time Supercross champion, and we wouldn't even be talking about this big four. We would just be talking about how are these guys going to dethrone Tomac, because he's that good. He has that potential. He is, you know, right now probably the best rider on the planet. Motocross, I still give it to Hurlings, but overall, I think Eli Tomac, speed-wise, put the package together, etc., you got to give it to Eli. So, I mean, on some level, you have to think it's going to be the favorite this year, right? I mean, surely he's got the speed to do it. He's got the race wins behind him. He's got 21 race victories now, which is double what any of his other competitors have. Roczen, I think, has 11. Musquin, 6 or 7, and the same for Anderson. Obviously, Chad Reed has 44, but, I mean, we're just kind of past the point where we consider Chad Reed to be some level of a title threat, I think. But, I mean, it's either going to happen or it's never going to happen for Tomac. You know, like, I just feel like he's had so many of these opportunities to just run away with this series and claim it and become a champion indoors, that you have to really think hard about what is going to go wrong this year. But there's a lot of things that could go wrong. It's not a foregone conclusion that Tomac is your favorite runaway series title guy. Like I said, he's been nursing a bit of a back injury this offseason, at least rumored to be. You know, is that going to hinder him a bunch? Is he going to struggle? Is he going to do, you know, better or worse coming into the season because of that? He's on a new bike, you know, technically that 2019 Cowie is brand new. You know, there's some things that line up that stack against him. But at the end of the day, the thing that stacks against Eli the most is himself. He's just, every time it comes down to something he's done that has cost him a chance at winning this title. Crashes, slide outs, you know, mental breakdowns. Like, it just doesn't ride well, or for whatever reason, it just doesn't ever add up. He's the new Stu, but he's not the new Stu, you know? He's got like this weird enigma of him that on the nights that Tomac is on, untouchable. On the nights that Tomac's off, you're like, Dean Wilson is making him look like he's not even supposed to be on the track. Like, and you just don't, it doesn't add up. Like, you could draw it out on a board 400 times and you're like, I don't get it. What happened tonight? What was the difference maker tonight that he went from winning by 25 seconds last week and now he's 7th this week? You know, Tomac's the new anomaly, the new what's going on, what's happening. I don't quite know what to really think about him other than that he's just Eli Tomac. He's the new cow. He's the new crash or win. But is he? Sometimes he doesn't crash and still struggles. Sometimes he gets bad starts. You know, obviously getting good starts has been kind of revamped for him with the new Supercross grade system, and that's definitely helped out. But I mean, he has to be your title favorite outside of the fact that Eli Tomac is his own worst enemy. That's just the only way to put it at this point. He'll win this title if he doesn't take the title away from himself, realistically speaking. At least that's how I feel about it. He definitely has a chance to take it from himself. We've seen it time and time again. And it really comes down to how this season starts and how the first few rounds are, whether or not he's going to be that guy again or he's a new improved Eli Tomac. We'll really have to see. I'm definitely excited to see it. I mean, like, you know, talking about all these guys, I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus necessarily, but it comes from my passion for the sport and, you know, excitement level that Anaheim's here, and I love talking about the sport, and I love, you know, bench racing about it with everybody, you know, every fan that watches this YouTube channel. And here's what I have to say. I understand some people may not agree with what I have to say, but I hope that you can understand that I'm really just here bench racing. Like, I'm not trying to say that, you know, Marvin's garbage or Tomac can't get outside of his own head and he's an idiot. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. This is literally just me pointing out positives and weaknesses about each rider that I think has a chance to win the title. A bold statement that I feel like should be mentioned here is that, in my opinion, the 4 guys that I mentioned, if all 4 of them make it to the halfway point of the season, nobody outside of those 4 guys is going to win a race next year. Or this year, I should say. We're already in 2019. I mean, that's it. It's these 4 guys. At least in my opinion, that's where I sit. I mean, they make it deep into the season. We don't have many injuries. It's just these 4 guys. There's no way around it. You can give me a great start for Barcia and a big lead. One of these 4 guys will find a way to catch him. Same goes for Brayton. Same goes for Webb. Same goes for Dino. It's just, these guys are really kind of just that next step up. And I don't see how you're going to beat all 4 of them if they're all 4 healthy. I could be totally wrong, but that's just my opinion on it. I mean, last year, 4 different race winners last year. The only one that really sticks out as weird is Justin Brayton winning Daytona. The other 3, Anderson, Marvin, Tomac. They won every other race. Roczen almost won races, but didn't get it done. So, I mean, like, it's these guys. I really hope the best for Barsha and Dino and Brayton and Webb and Seeley and Savacci and all the rookies coming in, Plessinger and all that, but I think it's just going to be these guys this year. I really do. That being said, I'm super looking forward to the influx of rookies. Obviously, Osborne getting injured sucks, but he'll come back. He'll be strong. Same for Plessinger coming into this season. Savacci looks great. And obviously we have Hill coming up too on that JGR Suzuki. Now, my bold prediction with the rookies, I've kind of been saying it all along. I should have probably mentioned it in a video before. I don't know if I have. But my 450 Rookie of the Year is going to be Mr. Joey Savacci. Didn't win a championship. He's the only one of the 4 guys that did not win a championship. But, I really feel almost like he's going to be like the Cole Seeley, if you will. Blazing fast in the 250 class. Never could quite get it done for a championship. But he's going to be good on a 450, at least in my opinion. He's a good rider for it. He seems to have that Cowie already pretty well figured out. I put Savacci as 450 Rookie of the Year. Do I think that he has the potential to win a race? I don't know. I would say I'd put maybe Hill and Plessinger both ahead of him as potential race winners before Savacci. But you never know. And like I said, I have a good feeling about Savacci this year. And again, all my thoughts and opinions could be wrong, and sometimes they really are wildly wrong. But I like to think of myself as a pretty decent analyst of the sport and try to call it like I see it. And I really feel like Savacci's going to have a good breakout year this year to kind of redeem himself for a more or less tough 250 career. With disappointments of not winning those championships when he probably should have, and so on and so forth. So anyway, I feel like I've talked a sufficient amount of time in this video about this upcoming season. My Anaheim 1 winner, Ken Roczen. That's who I'm picking to win the opener. I don't know if it's going to happen. Could be any of those other guys that I mentioned, but that's who I'm picking. And did not talk about the 250 class in this video, but that's okay, because you can watch my upcoming MX Simulator Anaheim 1 gameplay, in which I'll discuss all of the 250 shenanigans that'll go on in that class, and look forward to seeing you guys over on that one. But thanks for watching another video here on Start Your Systems. Love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section below, so let me know. And for now, we'll see you guys in the next one. So long for now.